So far in this series of How to Read a Comic Book videos, we've spent a lot of our time learning terminology for the unfamiliar field of comic studies by looking at Kerner's comic strip Hugo Hercules to the Rescue Once More, and at Lee and Kirby's comic book Fantastic Four number 52. And we've spent a little of our time learning about frameworks of analysis by reading Lee's article More Than Normal But Believable, and Coogan's article, The Definition of the Superhero. To conclude this first set of How to Read a Comic Book videos, I'll first spend a little more time teaching you about a framework of analysis by returning to Coogan's argument that a superhero should possess mission, powers, and identity, or MPI. As I explained in issue number 3, Coogan's definition is the framework of analysis in the academic field of comic studies that we will work with in your essay. Then, I'll take you through the steps I would follow to write a description of a panel in a comic that provides evidence that a character possesses one of the 4 elements in the MPI framework of analysis. Since Coogan presented his MPI definition in his 2006 book, Superhero: The Secret Origin of a Genre, it has proven popular in academic circles. It is based on Judge Augustus Noble Hand's opinion in the 1940 case of Detective Comics Incorporated versus Bruns Publications Incorporated, in which Hand and his fellow judges on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit ruled that Will Eisner's character of Wonder Man infringed on the copyright of Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster's Superman. From Hand's meditation on the essential nature of what he called, interestingly, a comic Hercules, Coogan distills a definition that includes 3 distinguishing qualities: mission, powers, and identity. The qualities of powers and mission need little explanation. The quality of identity, though, may need explanation. By identity, Coogan means that typically a character we could classify as a superhero will have a code name and a costume. So, if we want to apply this framework of analysis to our reading of comic books like Fantastic Four number 52 and Fantastic Four number 53, we would essentially need to ask 4 questions to determine if a character such as T'Challa, also known as the Black Panther, fits the definition of a superhero, at least Coogan's conception of it. First, does T'Challa have a mission in these comics? Second, does the Black Panther have powers? Third, does T'Challa have a code name? Fourth, does the Black Panther have a costume? If, after analyzing the evidence we see in the panels in Fantastic Four number 52 and Fantastic Four number 53, we could answer those 4 questions, yes, 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 and yes, then we could say, yes, the Black Panther does indeed fit Coogan's definition of a superhero. So, for our next discussion, you will use our basic comics terminology to describe one panel from either Fantastic Four number 52 or Fantastic Four number 53 that provides evidence that the character of the Black Panther possesses one of the 4 elements in the MPI framework: mission, powers, code name, and costume. To help you understand how to write a description of a panel in a comic, I will now take you through the steps that I would follow. For my example, I am pulling out page 18 of Fantastic Four number 52 one more time. Because there are multiple panels in this particular comic book that provide evidence that the Black Panther possesses powers, I'm still leaving you plenty of options for other panels you could describe for the P element of the MPI framework of analysis. On this particular page, though, I'm choosing let's count, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4th panel. So I could start out my description with a simple sentence that communicates the topic. Something along the lines of, in the 4th panel of page 18 comic book. Fantastic Four, number 52, we see evidence that the Black Panther possesses powers. Now, you would not need to describe every aspect of this panel. That is, you would not need to use every term on our list of basic comics terminology. But I would definitely recommend providing your readers with a short summary of what happens in this panel. Something along the lines of having plunged the room in which he is battling Mr. Fantastic into total darkness. A term from the third panel. I'm quoting, the Black Panther uses the superpower of seeing in the dark to gain an advantage. Now, at the end of that sentence, because it contains a quotation, I need to add an in-text citation. In this class, we'll use Modern Language Association, or MLA, style in-text citations. And the most traditional form of those calls for me simply to enclose two pieces of information between parentheses, author and page. So here I want to give equal credit to both the writer Stan Lee and the artist Jack Kirby, which is something that more folks in the field of comic studies should do. So I'm writing both their last names and then the page number inside this pair of parentheses. So Lee and Kirby, 18. Now, in this particular panel, I would argue that the strongest evidence that the Black Panther possesses that superpower is in the words, not in the pictures. And of our three categories of words, dialogue, thoughts, and narration, I noticed that these words are presented inside a circular balloon with a tail leading toward the mouth of the character who speaks them. So that convention of comics communicates to me as a reader that these words are dialogue. So after my summary of the panel, I'm adding a sentence that describes that specific aspect of it, that specific piece of evidence. Something along the lines of, we see evidence of this power in the dialogue of this panel, in which the Black Panther boasts to Mr. Fantastic. And unlike a mere human, the cat is never sightless in the dark. And because we're still on the same page, the in-text citation that I'm attaching to the end of this sentence containing a quotation is the same. Lee and Kirby, 18. Finally, even if your evidence seems perfectly clear to you as the writer, you should provide your readers with an explanation of why you think it supports the particular point that you're attempting to prove. So, to complete my description of this panel, I'm writing, in this dialogue, the Black Panther clearly communicates that he possesses a power of seeing in the dark that is more than human. That is a super power. So these are the steps I would follow to write a description of a panel in a comic. I encourage you to try to follow these same steps when you create your contribution to our next discussion by describing one panel from either Fantastic Four number 52 or Fantastic Four number 53 that provides evidence that the character of the Black Panther possesses one of the four elements in the MPI framework: mission, powers, codename, and costume.